I'm Angela Diffley. Washington says Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov have discussed the US-Russia relationship and the need to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Well, that as the two men held talks on the sidelines of a gathering by Southeast Asian foreign ministers in the Philippines. Afterwards, the Russian Foreign Ministry said Lavrov confirmed Russia's readiness for a political and diplomatic settlement of the conflict in Ukraine. Here's Marco Rubio speaking a few minutes afterwards at the end of the ASEAN conference in Manila. Take a listen.
When I have these talks, these things don't work well unless I come out here and characterize what the other side is saying. Suffice it to say that I think it's obvious to everyone that this war is very bloody. And look, Ukraine's paid a tremendous price as well. I mean, we've seen, civilian deaths, strikes in Kyiv. We've seen some of that increase. Certainly, I mean, this war has not been good for Ukraine either. So I think both sides should have an incentive to bring it to an end. That's been the challenge, is an end that both sides can accept. And we've tried and we'll continue to try to see if we can, find a middle ground that brings this about. And we're prepared to play that role if the opportunity presents itself. We expressed that today and we've expressed it in the past.
Well, Kethevane Gorjestani is here with us on set. Hi, Kethevane.
Hello.
Do you think they made any progress then at this talk, with these talks?
Well, look, coming from Marco Rubio, and we heard there in that soundbite that he didn't want to characterize the talk. So the Americans gave very few details as to what exactly transpired, what they exactly discussed, besides saying that this war is senseless, that it needs to end, that it's a bloody war. They insisted through Marco Rubio again that the Americans are willing to sort of be the middleman to help broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine, but they still to this day have not really given any suggestion as to how they intend to do that. What does that mean, being the country that brokers that deal? And we've seen throughout the past months and even years now that the Trump administration is not really willing to use its leverage to sort of force a little bit both sides to come and to make compromises, and especially not putting any pressure, or at least publicly any pressure on the Russians. And so what's interesting is that we got more details as to at least what the Russians were saying and what their position was through the Russians. Sergei Lavrov didn't exactly speak to reporters, but the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs did put out a statement and said that Lavrov had emphasized to Rubio, quote, the unacceptability of further arming Ukraine and the destabilizing policies of European countries, which continue to seek a strategic defeat for Russia. So for the Russians, not much has changed. And what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said was that Lavrov basically reiterated the fact that Russia is willing to talk about peace, talk about a deal, but based on the agreements that were done back in Alaska in 2025, which are terms that, of course, Ukraine is not going to go along with.